After drawing for years, I had the opportunity to experiment with very different papers until I realized I had developed some preferences regarding them. I want to share with you a bit of my experience with papers for realistic drawings, whether for graphite, charcoal, or colored pencils, and at the end of this video I'm going to tell you which paper to buy today if I could pick only one. But before that, don't skip to the end of this video because I want you to understand why I chose that paper. Hi, welcome to my channel. My name is Matheus Macedo and I talk about realistic drawings. Let me tell you a little about my experience with different drawing papers. When I started off years ago in my journey with realistic drawings, I knew almost nothing about art materials in general, let alone paper. One of the first papers I used was Canson Bristol. I hope the pronunciation is correct. It's a yellowish paper with a lot of texture, and the truth is it's a very pleasant paper to draw on. It is resistant, absorbs graphite very well, and because of its tooth it can withstand several layers of graphite. What I don't like much about it is its color. The drawings get a more vintage, aged look, which might be nice with some themes, but personally I don't like it as much. Another paper I tried was Canson Bristol. This paper is very different from the previous one, and to be honest, it's one of the worst papers I've used, at least for drawing with graphite. It's too smooth, so the drawings become opaque without depth, as it can't absorb many layers of graphite, quite the opposite. It also has a bluish tone that I don't like at all. Does it mean that Bristol type papers are bad? Not necessarily. After finishing that first realistic drawing course, I started experimenting with other Bristol papers. I like the fact they're smooth, so it allows me to work on the details with a lot of precision. So then I bought the Lana Bristol paper and got some really good results. This drawing of a wet face, for example, was the first realistic drawing I did in A3 size, and to this day I still think I've done a good job here. What I noticed today is the same difficulty I have with all Bristol papers. It is hard to overlap layers and obtain more depth in the blacks in getting more contrast. I started making my first realistic colored drawings around this time in 2018. Once again, I found it very pleasant to draw on Canson Bristol, but I kept experimenting with Lana Bristol and Canson XL, which is a much cheap paper and doesn't have that bluish tone of the other Canson Bristol paper. However, I don't know why I insisted so much with these papers because drawing with them is tiring. It's true that I've done some drawings that I still like a lot, like this betta fish and this eye with leaves, both on Lana Bristol. But at the end of these sessions my arms were always worn out trying to add more layers of colored pencil. Luckily, I found two excellent papers. The first of them is Fabriano for L. The L stands for liscio, which is smooth in Italian. However, it's not as smooth as Lana Bristol, so with this paper I was able to work better with the overlapping layers, which makes everything much more pleasant and forgiving. There's just one problem with Fabriano, it's not that easy to find where I live and it's quite expensive. Fortunately, I found another paper that is similar to Fabriano for L, and it's the one that I've used the most so far, the Strathmore 300 series Bristol Smooth. Most of the drawings you see here on my channel and on my social media were done on this paper. If you like smooth papers, this one is perfect because it's a resistant paper with a slightly, very subtle yellowish tone, but that doesn't bother me. It also allows you to work with multiple layers of graphite, charcoal or colored pencils. Drawing on it is very pleasant. So much so this is the paper I recommended in my book Realistic Drawing for Beginners. By the way, the exercises in the book were done on this paper, so you can't go wrong with it. For me, this paper is a no-brainer because it's not hard to find where I live and it's not exceptionally expensive. However, recently I started using Strathmore's Bristol Vellum surface from the same series. Today, I think this is the paper you should buy if you want a paper that works with colored pencils as well as graphite and charcoal, and I'll tell you why. Strathmore Bristol Vellum is similar to Bristol Smooth, but it has a little more texture, a little more tooth. It's just as resistant, has the same GSM, the same tone, but the fact that it has more texture may appeal to some. The fact that it has more texture, as I said, allows you to work with more layers, which allows you to achieve a greater depth of values, a more consistent coverage. On the other hand, the drawing would take on a grainier appearance. However, here's an ace in the hole. The back of the Vellum is smooth, making it very similar to Strathmore Bristol's smooth surface. In other words, if you are undecided between the Vellum and smooth types, I recommend you pick the Vellum. It's more versatile than the smooth one and gives you the best of both papers. For example, my most recent graphite drawing was the portrait of René Jean Falconetti as Joan of Arc in the 1928 movie The Passion of Joan of Arc. A fantastic movie, by the way. The reference image I used has a certain grainy look, so I ended up drawing it on the Vellum paper. I could have drawn it on the front side of the paper, but I opted for the flatter back side and I thought it looked great. I could have drawn it on the front side if I wanted that grainy look. Finally, I want to make a comparison between these three colored pencil drawings. The first on Strathmore Bristol Smooth, the second on Strathmore Bristol Vellum on the front side, and the third on Canson Bristol, the one I mentioned at the beginning of this video. Notice that the Vellum is a middle ground between the smooth and the Bristol. When it comes down to it, I prefer something with a smooth appearance like the Strathmore Bristol Smooth, but which the back of the Vellum also gives me. That's why if I could afford only one paper for realistic drawing, I would buy the Strathmore 300 series Bristol Vellum surface. And that's it for this video. I hope this brief tour through different papers has helped you better understand the strengths and weaknesses of each drawing paper. And here's my recommendation of Strathmore's Bristol papers, which are my favorites. The links to these materials are mentioned here in the description. Thanks for watching this video and I see you in the next one.